Welcome to the RBRBoxing Weekly Roundup. Today is Friday, January 23rd, 2015. I'm Alex Burgos, Editor-in-Chief of Round by Round Boxing. I'm joined by Gabe Rivas, our Senior Analyst. And today we're going to talk about a little bit of what went on this past week in boxing. There was a lot of news and just recently some fights made today. So let's get into it, Gabe. The Al Heyman show continues. NBC was the big thing last week, and now Spike TV is going to be hosting some boxing. The first card is going to take place on March 13th at the StubHub Center, your backyard. I know you love that place, Gabe. And it's going to be headlined by former welterweight title holder Andre Berto against Josecito Lopez, and also former welterweight title holder Sean Porter is going to be taking on Roberto Garcia. A pretty big step-up fight for him. That'll be the co-featured bout. So, Gabe, what do you think about this Spike TV announcement? Another good move for boxing on network TV. And what do you think about this first card on March 13th?
Heyman is obviously trying, is taking over and doing really well, announcing the Spike TV deal. As for the card, I think it's really good. We have Josecito Lopez and Andre Berto, people who, with their skill and the fight that they've been able to engage in, just one step away from that upper echelon, I guess, of their respective division. I'm assuming they'll be meeting at welterweight. I think it's a good fight because they both have been hit, they both can be hit, and they both are very willing to engage in war. As for the co-feature, I think it's a great step up for Roberto Garcia, and it's a good fight for Sean Porter. We saw what happens when he's faced with a good boxer like Kell Brook. I think he'll be engaging more with Roberto Garcia, and he'll be there, for him to land. What I do like is that it's going to be at the StubHub Center, which is my backyard, and I want to see what Al Heyman can do with a place like the StubHub Center, which just seems to bring out the warrior in every fighter that goes there, and the team that does the commentary, because that hasn't been announced yet, and I'm curious just to see how that will go. But if they're putting boxing on basic cable and on network television, then it can't be bad for boxing.
Yeah, definitely still some things to iron out, so we'll see who the commentary team is and how that pans out. But exciting stuff from Heyman 2 weeks in a row now, and we'll keep a close eye on that card. Up next, Canelo and Kirkland was just announced. So that's Canelo Alvarez and James Kirkland. Exciting that it'll be on regular HBO, not HBO pay-per-view, and the likely date is going to be May 2nd, with the fight probably landing in San Antonio, Texas. So Canelo was in talks with Miguel Cotto, and obviously those talks fell through. They couldn't come to an agreement, and so Canelo just immediately goes to the next best option. And I know a lot of people have stated that, hey, this is going to be a fan-friendly fight. A lot of people are excited for it. You got to give the kid credit for just not taking even a breath and just saying, okay, give me the next best fight. What do you think about, A, what do you think about this matchup, and B, how do you think James Kirkland will react? Having been out of the ring for so long, last time he was in the ring was against Glenn Tapia, but how do you think James Kirkland will come prepared for this fight?
I think it's great. First off, for Canelo Alvarez, the talks didn't go through. The guy just is a warrior, and he's willing to fight anyone. You get the feeling that when he says he wants to take on the best, and he wants to take on Triple G, that he'll actually do it sometime in the future. And the quickness and the easiness with which he got this fight, despite not getting the Miguel Cotto fight, just shows us that he wants to, he just wants to be in there with the best. As far as James Kirkland is concerned, stylistically, I think he's perfect for Canelo. I can see him walking into every single combination that Canelo throws. But we have to remember that Kirkland was the guy who, for me, completely changed Alfredo Angulo's career. In the first round of the war a few years back, he was caught with a good right hand that dropped him, but he did finish the fight, and he did finish it on his terms by knocking out Angulo in the later round. So Kirkland definitely is going to be a big test for Canelo, because I don't think he's been in there with someone that powerful. But stylistically, I think I can see him walking into everything that Canelo throws, simply because he has a very high guard and he's very quick with his counter punches.
Right. That'll be an exciting fight. It's pretty much a can't miss one on paper. So we'll see how that undercard shapes out, and what else they provide on that return to HBO for Canelo Alvarez. That fight again was just announced earlier today by Canelo via social media. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Next up, another talk of a potential fight. Andy Lee has been in the news this week. First, supposedly was going to fight Peter Quillen, and then Frank Warren spoke on Sky Sports last night and kind of made mention of, hey, Billy Joe Saunders is the number one contender. He's the mandatory for that WBO strap. So there's a couple of potential rivals for Andy Lee between Peter Quillen, who's the former WBO middleweight title holder. He vacated that title. And then Billy Joe Saunders, who just recently had a big win over his nemesis, Chris Eubank Jr. So despite the speculation, that the voluntary defense would be there for Andy Lee against, Peter Quillen, Frank Warren is saying, hey, hold on a second, there's no voluntary defense that's been, no deal has been struck with the WBO. So unless they accommodate to him, we may end up seeing Andy Lee versus Billy Joe Saunders first. So how would you size those matchups up? Which one do you think is more beneficial at this point for Andy Lee? You got to look at it financially speaking, and just who do you think he can beat? Who he has a better chance of beating?
Financially speaking, I think the Peter Quillen fight is going to be better for him. I'm assuming it's going to be on Premier Boxing Championship, and it'll be on NBC.
Right, that was the rumor.
Right, he's going to get more money for it, but if he wants a better shot to keep his title, I think he should stick to fighting Billy Joe Saunders. Peter Quillen's a big guy, and this is just on a side note. I don't think he should fight for the title he just vacated for whatever reason he did. I think we at least need to see him fight once or twice, but that's something else. As far as Andy Lee's concerned, I think it'd be better for him if the WBO doesn't grant the voluntary defense and instead forces him to fight the mandatory contender Billy Joe Saunders, who really did, deserve this title shot when he beat Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, so Frank Warren says, there could be, purse bids next week. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what's going on. But a lot of people were excited for the Quillen Lee fight because, that's probably a more notable fight between two guys that I guess people in the States would know better. Not many people know much about Billy Joe Saunders, but those are two options that Andy Lee has. Now that he's the champion, he can maybe select something that's more beneficial for him.
Right, and if you had asked me a year ago, I'd tell you, Quillen, is going to knock this guy out. But with the last two fights, we've seen him end fights with the right hook. So, even if Quillen is a big challenge, I can see Andy Lee winning just because of that good right hook. Not to rule out his win, but definitely I can see him. He has a better shot against Saunders.
Right. Moving on to this weekend's matchup between Mike Alvarado and Brandon Rios, the last chapter in the trilogy. We talked about this briefly last week, but two former world champions. They look like they're in shape. The weigh-in was today. No problems for either man. We're expecting an intense and exciting bout to, finish off this trilogy. You have Denver's Mile High Mike Alvarado, the hometown guy this fight, Brandon Bam Bam Rios. They look to settle the score once and for all. How do you see this fight shaping out, and who do you like?
I like Alvarado in this fight. Alvarado is the bigger and longer guy, and Brandon Rios, some of his best fights were at lightweight. So I can't really see Alvarado winning this fight, and because we've seen that Alvarado can make adjustments. I remember our friend at Fight Gauge made a little joke on their Instagram account when he matched up Brandon Rios and Mike Alvarado. For Brandon Rios, he just says that he has an endless number of plan A's, and that's what he does when he fights. He has one plan: to throw bombs and stay there in the pocket. Alvarado has a plan B. He knows how to move around, albeit it's not the best boxing, but it was enough to keep Brandon Rios away en route to a decision win. So I see Alvarado winning this fight just because we've already seen that he can make adjustments in the fight.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see, if Alvarado can stay on that path, on that plan. He says he's watched enough tape, he has it in his mind. Was one of the quotes that he said to HBO earlier this week was, I know the plan, I have it in my mind, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to execute, and I'm going to box. But he's one of these guys, similar to when, Gotti and Ward fought. You hit him a couple times, and it just turns something on in his mind, and, he doesn't want to back down. He's got that warrior mentality. So we will see if he can stick to his guns and to the game plan and try to outbox Brandon Rios, because that'll be his best chance to win. But we'll keep an eye on that one. There's also a pretty good prospect on the undercard in Gilberto Ramirez. He's taking on Maxim Vlasov, who's not the biggest puncher, but probably the best opponent in Ramirez's young career. So we'll keep an eye on that bout. Check out RBRBoxing on Instagram and on Twitter for coverage. We'll also have recaps immediately following each bout. We have a couple people covering the fights in Leanne Perez and Junior Barron. So stay tuned to roundbyroundboxing.com. We'll be back next week with another weekly roundup. Also check out our podcast on SoundCloud and on our website under the podcast tab. And we'll be back with more news and notes for you next week. For Gabe, I'm Alex. Thanks for listening.